The RF 24mm f1.8 macro IS-STM is one of the few budget ways to get a bright, stabilized lens on Canon's RF mount, and alongside very solid image quality, this lens is well suited for both full-frame and APS-C budget bodies. With a full price of nearly $700 US though it can be had for far less used or refurbished in the USA, we want to make sure we get our money's worth out of the thing. Today, we'll go over some tips, tricks, and camera settings that can help you make the most out of Canon's widest RF mount macro lens, both for photo and video. As always, check the chapter bar below or the timestamps in the description if you want to skip directly to a particular section. Before we dive into the meat of this video, be aware I will not be discussing lighting, composition, or subject selection much, nor will I be going in-depth into photo or video editing. These aspects of photography and videography are much more important than your equipment, and if you haven't already, I would highly recommend reading some books or watching some videos on improving your skill in these areas. I also won't be discussing general camera settings that can help improve any lens's output. RAW format, auto lighting optimizer, HDR bracketing or HDR-PQ, maximum ISO, and safety ship for example. Refer to my advanced beginner guide if you want in-depth details on these features and more, or my RFS 18 to 45mm user guide starting at about 5 minutes in for a shorter version. Also note that unlike in my other lens guides and reviews, I will not be doing general image quality tests on this lens, and all footage and photos in this guide were made on APS-C cameras, though all the tips and techniques described here also apply to full frame. Let's start with a look at the RF-24's exterior. It's fairly compact and lightweight, being mostly made out of plastic, but not feeling shoddily built, though Canon has pettily omitted any kind of weather sealing or included hood, the latter of which you can buy separately at a steep price. There are two switches, one for image stabilization and another for auto manual focus switch. R7 and 10 users, take note that the AF-MF switch on your camera's body will be non-functional while this lens is mounted. Two rings are present, a medium-sized ridged manual focus ring, and a smaller diamond-textured dedicated control ring at the end of the barrel. The gap between them is just enough to avoid accidentally bumping one while operating the other, though if you do have a hood mounted backwards, it will mostly block the control ring. The manual focus ring turns smoothly and silently, but the control ring is clicky and will be audible with the camera's onboard microphone. You can apparently send the lens in for Canon to permanently declick for $80. The lens mount itself is metal thankfully, though as mentioned there is no weather sealing gasket, so be careful in moist and dusty situations. The filter size is 52mm, which unfortunately is shared with only a few other RF and EF lenses. The lens hood mount, however, is a good bit wider, and I was easily able to use a 58mm size filter with step-up rings without losing the ability to remove and place the hood. That hood mount is wider for a reason, however. The focusing element on this lens is external and extends outwards quite a bit. Since the focus ring is electronic, you can't move it while the lens is unpowered, and unless you have retract lens on power off and the orange menu disabled, the element will slowly retreat to a storage mode when you turn the camera off, resetting your focus point in the process. The manual warns against detaching the lens before its element has reached storage mode, but oddly does not give any cautions against physically moving the unpowered element, which you can easily do if it's exposed. I would advise against getting in the habit of doing so, however, just in case. When the lens is powered on and autofocusing, any obstruction of the moving focus element results in an unpleasant grinding sound and the element temporarily retreating, something the manual describes with a confusing word salad. For a modern lens, the RF 24mm is a bit sluggish and noisy during autofocusing, which might not be a problem for photos but can be an issue for video. Thankfully, Canon engineers recognized the noise issue and quieted it a bit in this mode, but there is a bit more we can do. Servo is much quieter for one shot for starters, but slowing the servo speed for maximum increasingly lowers the autofocus noise, though the soft creaking never really goes away. If video servo speed is your priority, the fastest setting available, at least on this R7, wouldn't quite keep up with rapidly moving subjects, though a lens of this focal length likely wouldn't be used for such things anyway. Using manual focus isn't any faster, since as mentioned it's fully electronic and focused by wire, but it's a good idea to practice using it for more control when autofocus fails. Enabling focus distance display under shooting info display in your camera's red menu will provide a helpful focus scale, along with a line for magnification. More on that later. Some lenses can focus closer with manual focus than with auto, but thankfully this lens is not one of them. Ensuring focus guide and peaking are enabled will help immensely with switched manual focusing, and as electronic full-time manual focusing lens, holding the one-shot autofocus button to either magnify or temporarily use peaking and focus guide. Manual focusing on the exact spot you want is reasonably easy, though the heavy focus breathing can be distracting. Both RF lens MF focus ring sensitivity options feel similar in accuracy. The word macro is featured heavily in the marketing. However, do note this is not a true 1:1 macro lens, but rather a 1:2 or half-life size. How much of a difference does that make? Quite a bit if you compare the EFS 35mm macro for instance, which does offer a true 1:1 magnification. Still, half-life size does allow for some nice close-ups, even with a 24mm focal length. Is this lens sharp enough at these distances to be worthy of the macro moniker? First problem you might run into is light availability, since you have to be quite close, but the externally focusing element is actually somewhat useful here as it blocks less natural light than the full lens barrel. However, built-in flashes such as that of this R10 are unusable at these distances. f1.8 is soft, but at these distances you'd want to be using f5.6 or higher anyways, unless focus stacking. At these apertures, you do get nice crisp imagery, even on the 32 megapixel APS-C sensor of this R7, though it's still not as sharp as a real macro lens like the aforementioned EFS 35. Speaking of focus stacking, the heavy focus breathing poses issues here, and results in a high likelihood of ghosting for handheld in-camera composites. Tripod-based ones were more successful, however. Instead of close-ups of insects or flowers, you can also use that close minimum focus distance to create some extreme background blur, even on APS-C, though it's easy to go overboard. The external focusing element can again be troublesome, since as you get closer to your focus subject, the element extends further. If working handheld, I recommend instead manually focusing on the magnification you want first, then physically bringing your camera into focus range. Stabilization at these distances is not very effective, regardless of the additional digital options enabled. Though bracing with a camera's eye cup, if yours has one, is more effective than the handhold palm method. Shutter shock is a phenomenon that can happen while using mechanical shutter or electronic first curtain shutter to a lesser degree. For certain lenses between shutter speeds of around 1/50th through 1/200th, depending on the body and lens. Shutter shock can cause softening of fine detail as seen here with the EFS 15-85. Is the RF 24mm f1.8 susceptible as well? Using an R7, a body well known for its aggressive mechanical shutter, inspecting a 720p crop of the same scene reveals very little if any differences at 1/60th, 1/100th, and 1/200th shutter speeds. Longitudinal chromatic aberration, also known as color fringing, is a hard-to-remove phenomenon that is present on the RF 24mm, though thankfully in most situations it's unnoticeable. Even in backlit or highly reflective scenes where it's at its worst, you often have to crop in or pixel peep to really see it, but once you do, it's hard to unsee. Stopping down to f5.6 mostly does away with it if it's truly bothersome. Flaring can really wreck an image with certain lenses, but thankfully the RF24 1.8 doesn't seem very susceptible. In fact, I couldn't even tell if a hood made a difference. As a bonus, the Sunstars this lens produces are quite decent, and start showing up at around f5.6. I hope you found this video useful, whether you're an RF 24mm owner or thinking about getting one. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, and/or subscribe.